Okay, so on the last lesson, what we looked at was creating our first puzzle, which was, of course, walking down this corridor, hitting the pressure pad, and door opens, which is great. Now, I've just blocked out this little small room here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create our next puzzle. Now, what our next puzzle is, if I bring this over, if we ignore for a second all the room numbers that comes later on, but if we just this little bit. If we just step on this and then walk through, forget all the little text that will come later on. We hit F. You'll notice these little cubes with filler cubes on top pop up. We click on it, and it's corresponding to the code that's on our screen. And when the code's complete, you can walk through and then you'll complete the next level. Obviously, this isn't being made in this level. We're just focusing on the other room. So, to do this, let's get rid of this. What we need to first do is create some objects in that room. So I'm just going to make like a little stand, like a TV or something, quickly. Let's make it here. So I can just go to new shape, new cube, and just start creating a cube very quickly. That's just going to be iCard desk. And then what I'll do is I'll just call this desk. Now what I've done is I've made prefab, not prefabs, I've made empty game objects, and each game object will represent the room. So I'm just going to put desk in room 2 because obviously this is going to be room 2. I'm going to make a new 3D cube. Just going to drag it over. Like so. And then I will make a TV. So again, nothing fancy. You will obviously replace this with your own design. So what I'm going to do, I want to make a new material just to cover this with black. So materials folder, create new material, call it black matte, and just dark color here. Again, if I select this face and then drag it on, there you go. So that's black. Our next step is to create our columns. So what we'll do is we'll make 5 columns, or 6. Let's make 6. So 6 running columns. So that's make an empty game object just to hold them, and we'll call this puzzle columns. Okay, so just resize it. Again, you'll replace these with whatever you want to replace them with, so don't worry too much about my design. Just make it very simplistic for us. So we'll start off by creating just the one for now. So, and then on top of that, another cube, and this cube is the button. Just bring this down like so, in and in, bring it up. Okay, so that's done. Here's our little kind of buttony thing. But what we want to do is create different materials for it because we want each one to look different. So I'm going to just use red, green, blue, orange, yellow, and pink. Yeah, let's do that. So I'll start making them, and then I'll get back to you. So, in fact, let's do the first one together. So to do the first one together, we just come to the materials folder, create new material, and we'll call it pink matte. Let's make this pink. We just drag it onto here. There you go. So that's our pink material. So then all you'll do is you'll create all your other materials. I'm going to run through it quickly. I'm going to speed this video up, but we'll get there. So we've made the first one. We've made all the materials, which is fine. Great. What I need to do is I need to make this into a prefab. So I'm just going to grab this and drag it over. That becomes a prefab. What we'll do is we'll actually put this inside a never empty game object. So let's just call it puzzle cubes. Just drop that in, like so. Let's rename that to puzzle cubes. So what we'll do is we need to activate this button. Let's make another colour for this button. So materials. Let's use, trying to contrast it, green. And we just drop that on there. So what we're going to do is the player will walk it to here. When they walk it to here, they press F. When they press F, this will animate up. But before we do that, what we need to do is create our animations and our scripts. So let's start doing that. So firstly, what we want to do is add a box radar as a trigger, and let's make this a big collider. And then we also want a collider on the button. So to do that, we just go onto our prefab, which is this, and we add a collider that is a trigger. Again, we'll just expand this out. So that when the player steps in here, we can actually do something with it. So that's now our prefab, and what we do again, we just go to overrides and apply to all. What we want to first do is animate this. So we want it to actually start where this cube itself is down, so it's underground. When you hit this button, pops up. So what we'll do is we'll add a new animation to it. So create animations. We'll call it puzzle cube anim, and that's fine. Puzzle cube up, anim. Let's add the transform to it. So properties, transform, position, and then let me just pause this a second. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, so there is a mistake of that. We've done the animation on this here. That's not what it should be. It should actually be on this column here. So let me just go into the project folder, animations, and pedal cube. Delete these. We can start again. So just click on this column, go to animation, create, puzzle, cube, anim. It's fine. And then save again, create clip, puzzle, cube, up, anim. Let's add the transform, record. Now this is going to actually be at 0. This should all be zeroed out. So what we need to do before we do this, actually let's correct this, is make sure that this is at 0 and 0 here. But what we want to do is we want to zero every now and then. We can move it along. So what we do then is just move this along to here, which is fine, and you can set it on the floor here, like so. I need to make a few adjustments to the collider, so I should bring this up. So, and then all we need to do is again is animate this column bit, because basically what's going to happen is if we were to animate this, it's not going to be not going to be zeroed out. It's not. It's if I was to then duplicate this and move it over here, when the animation plays, the animation will still play over here, not over here where we want it. So what we do is make the animation on this, and this is relevant to this here. So let's just bring this down, like so, and let's now do the animation. So as you see, it's all zeroed out now. So let's actually delete these keyframes, add the transform back in. Sorry, make sure it's on the column. So let's delete this animator. Okay, let's start fresh because that's kind of messed up there. Let's start fresh. Let's go back to here. And let's delete these again. Okay, on the column, this is what you need to animate. So go to animation, create, puzzle, cube, anim. That's fine. Now create new clip, puzzle, cube, up, anim. Add transform. Obviously Y is fine because it does need to be at this point, as long as the X and Z are zeroed, we're fine. So we want to go to about 15, hit the record button and just bring ourselves up. Yep. Let's get rid of these keyframes here for a second. Stop record and let's just play it through, see how fast this works. So that's a bit too fast. We want a nice slow reveal. Maybe just a bit longer. See, that's fine. So let's bring it up. Perfect. So all we do is we copy these keyframes, like we did in the last tutorial, copy the keyframes, make a new animation. Puzzle cube down on him. Again, add the transform positions back in. Let's get rid of these. Bring it back to 45 and paste them in. So there we go. Good. Exactly how we want it. Okay, so the next thing to do is come into our project window and just highlight the puzzle cubes and make sure the loop times are off. In the pressure pad animator, sorry, not pressure pad animator, the puzzle animator. We just set these out again as we did last time, so go to triggers, activated and deactivated. And then we go from the base cube animation to the cube up, from the cube up to the cube down, from the cube down, and then rotation back to this to reset it. So cube activated, it goes up. When the cube's deactivated, basically when the level once the either the time's run out, or another way to do it is if you completed the puzzle, you'll animate back down and then come back to this. So let's now actually make this work. So to make this work, what we need to do is firstly click on this and overrides apply to all. We want it to open another door. Now we can't just come over here and copy this door, because we'll have the same problem as we previously had, where if you animate, if I place this door over here and try to animate it, the door is just going to appear here. Don't want that. So we need to fix this. So in order to fix it, let's find the original. Let's delete that. Do that. Let's find the original door prefab, which is here. For some reason it's in the wrong folder. What I have to do is make sure is delete our door animations. Let's start this again. So in room 1, all we do is we make another empty game object. Again, we call this door. Just get rid of that. Now what you want to do is you bring this to roughly where the door is going to be. And it doesn't have to be accurate, because what you're going to do is you're going to get the door prefab, which has actually come from sci-fi modular kit, and it should be in there. So that's the actual prefab of that door. So what you'll do is you'll grab this, place it in, and that then becomes this door. Okay, then you just zero it all out, like so. Come onto here, make sure you're on local. Make sure you keep that at 0. That always should be 0. Because what you're going to animate, you are going to animate the door, but the prefab's holding the door, so that you aren't moving that thing. The door is animating within in the transform of the empty game object, which is what we forgot to set before. Now it would only be like this on your tutorial videos. It would not be like this in lessons. I would have fixed it by then. Obviously these lessons have been recorded way before you've even come back to college. Make sure this is actually set to center just so it's easy to. Now just create a nice little collider on the door itself. We should create this box collider just so we can't basically walk through the door, otherwise we'll be able to walk through the door and we don't want that. So create that box collider, and then we just, unfortunately, we have to do the animation again, which is annoying, but it's a quick fix. So save. What we have to do is come onto here, add our script, which is the door script, naturally. Of course, you need to once again add your audio source and just drag your audio over, so sound effects door open there, like so. So then we make this our prefab, which is door. This is the one that we'll now add. So all we do now is we come over to the door and we can just drag it in to here. Because the animation will now work on this door because it's within this child object. And all you do is you'll rotate 95 degrees. Nice 90. This. Go to animation, sorry. Go to door opening, and we just play it. And there you go. Now it's working in the right place. Okay, so where were we? We are creating our puzzle cube. So we've done the same thing here where we've got a child object, we've got a parent object, which is puzzle cubes. And this is going to contain a bunch of our prefabs, which are the columns. So I'm just going to make some. So I want 6 columns. So I should drag that in. Again, just move it down. In fact, let's not do that. Let's bring this up a second. So I'm going to go on the animator for this, for the column, and I'm going to just so it's up so I can see it. Just so I can see it. Because what I want to do is I actually want to add the script to this. So let's start doing our script. So the script actually lives on the button itself. Okay, so we're going to have 2 scripts. We're going to have a script on this button here, and we're going to have a script on this button here. The reason we got the TV is because the TV can actually display our materials. So we've made a bunch of materials previously. Sorry, someone's at the door. Let me pause. Okay, apologies for that. So where were we? We have our cube here, and this has got 1 material on it, on the button itself. This is our button to start the puzzle. So when you click on this button, this is going to animate up, and then it's going to start the puzzle. What this screen behind you is doing is going to change different colors based on what it wants you to press. Okay, how does it do that? Well, we have already created all our materials. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 materials. Remember, we're going to have 6 actual materials that we're going to with 6 buttons that we need to press, but we're going to have 5 materials that we're going to flip through. So how does it flip through these materials? Well, it uses something called an array. Now, what an array is, it's kind of like a holder. So if you think of a bookshelf in a library, for example, the bookshelf in the library holds so many books. So that's what an array is. It's just basically, it's like a bookshelf. It's a holder for something. And what it's holding is the materials we're going to give it for in this instance. But arrays are fixed. So when I define the array, I need to say, well, this array should hold 10 items. Or in our case, it should hold 5 materials. Remember that arrays are indexes. So you call the index for that array. And in order to call the index, all indexes start at 0. So if I was to bring up, for example, a Google sheet, essentially you would have your index and data. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we've got red, blue, green, yellow, and this basically is still called data. Let's call it materials. So what we're doing is, if we wanted the red material, we would call index 0. So we have actually got 6 materials here, but you see it only goes up to 5. But that's because index 0 is always your first index. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's never 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's always 0. So it starts at 0. So we know that specifically index 0 is our red material, index 1 is our blue, index 2 is our green, index 3 is our yellow, 5 blah blah. And that's how we would call it in code. And that's all we're doing. So what happens with your array is that they are fixed size. So I would have to determine the size of my array when I'm ready to start coding it. And of course, my array size is going to be an array of 5 because I've got 5 materials. However, if you compare this to a list, for example, now we're not going to look at lists, but I just want to give you a quick overview of what lists are. Lists are pretty much like arrays. They will hold data, but they are dynamic and they can grow and shrink, whereas arrays are fixed. So I say at the start, this array contains 10 items. It contains 10 items, that's it. Now I can modify that later on, but I can't add to it as we're running the game. Instead, you'd use a list for that, where you can then pop the list. So you can basically go into the list and you can keep adding items to it. Arrays are fast because their size is fixed, whereas lists are slower because it has to resize itself. With arrays with memory, they are allocated in blocks, so they're in a block form, so they're more efficient, whereas lists use more memory due to the flexibility of them. Arrays are quite simple, essentially, so they are very rigid. Whereas lists, they are flexible, so it's very easy to add and remove items. But for this particular thing, what we're doing here, you would use arrays, you wouldn't use lists. Let's start looking at how we're going to make this. So we're going to have 2 scripts. What the scripts are doing, if I start creating it with you, is we're going to have a script for this button here. So basically, every time you click this button, it's going to change here. And then this is controlling it all. So let's start making these scripts. And what probably the easiest one to make first will be, let's do the colored blocks first. So the actual puzzle. Okay, so this one here. So all I do is make a new C# script. I'm gonna call it colored block puzzle. and that goes on this object here, which is our activated. Okay, so let's open this. Let's get rid of the update and the start function, and let's start declaring some variables. Now again, in class you would declare some but not all. In this instance I'm going to literally run through all the script itself so that you kind of get an overview. So let's make a new header because I want to be able to actually change these settings, because it's going to be quite vast. So serialize field, let's make a private game object, which is an array. So to declare an array, we've done game objects before, so let's just call this we've declared variables in the past, easy. But when you want to declare an array, you use square open and close square brackets, because this then defines it as an array. So private game object array. So what this is the array to hold the colored blocks. So again, serialized field, private game object, and this is going to be the color TV. So that is a reference to the TV. So a reference to this. Let's come back and serialized field. So I'm going to put some timestamps in the video itself, so if you don't want to run through this, you can skip it, but I would advise you to watch this just so that you get the context of what's actually happening. So material, and again, this is an array. Let's spell it properly, material. This is an array, and what this is our TV mat. So this is an array to hold the TV materials. Why we hold the TV materials? Because when we start the puzzle, our materials are going to flip on the screen. So basically they're going to change color. And when they change color, we then need to hit the corresponding color cube. Again, serialized field. And this is going to be a reference to our door. And speaking about that, we haven't fixed something. We're going to fix that very quickly now, just while it's on my mind. Otherwise, you're never going to get into this room because we haven't set something up here. So on this door here, we have added our door script. However, what haven't we done? On this puzzle, we've not used the door. So what we do is we don't use the door game object. We don't use the door empty game object. Sorry, we use the door prefab. So we just go pressure pad and drag that over there, like so. And that's just a reference to that. Sorry about that. That's while it was on my mind. So let's go back. Okay. Look it off. Serialized field, private, float. Remember, floats are floating numbers, which are numbers with decimal point, and this is 60f, so 60 seconds. So this is a reference to the timer for the puzzle. So basically, how long have we got to complete this puzzle? I'm giving ourselves a minute to do it. Again, it's because it's editable in the inspector, you can always change that value if you want. Why that says minus, I don't know. Let's get rid of that. It's private, integer, and it's sequence length. And this 6. So what this is how many buttons need to be pressed to unlock the door. So basically, how many times do you need to hit a button in order for the door to activate itself? And we're saying 6. Okay, you can make it harder or easier by changing that. We're not going to add the... What are we? Yes, let's do it. So these are game settings. I'm going to make a new header. And these are the audio settings. And it's serial field, private, audio clip, activate puzzle, sound effect. So what these are references to the audio clips for activating, completing, and failing the puzzle. Okay. We are going to have another couple of elements. What these elements are a UI, because we need we need a timer to basically show. And the way we did the timer in the last game was just a countdown number. Yeah, that's fine, that works. Why not go a bit further here and use something more practical? So what's more practical? Well, let's use a slider. So our time is now going to be represented by a slider. So let's do that. So what we'll do is we need to create a UI manager, which we'll make in a minute. But we also need to make the UI. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save the script here, and create our UI very quickly. So UI canvas, and let's just make sure. I'm sorry about the dog barking. Make sure scale screen size is on. That's fine. Right click, UI. Slider, and if you go bring the game here just so I can see, yep, make sure the top right corner is there, that's fine. We just need to position it. Obviously, as you can see, it's Halloween, so people are knocking on my door like so. And then what we need to do is we just need to change the colors for this. So to change the colors, it's very, very simple. We just need to change the fill area. So we go to slider, fill area, and our fill changes to red. Just like that. We don't need, so at the minute you can actually see that we've got this little, make this bigger, this little kind of like circle slidery thing. We don't need that. Let's get rid of it. It's crap. This is what we want. And this is why I couldn't see it, because our slider should be at, oops, sorry, 1. So the way our slider works, it goes between 0, which is nothing, or 1, which is full. And we want it to start at 1 and then work its way down. So basically, as the clock starts ticking, this just goes click, 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 bye. And that's what we'll do. Back to our scene view, back to our, just hit the door, so we're in this room. And that's reference to that. What we also need to do is make a UI manager. So right click, create UI manager game object. Sorry, script. Create an empty game object and just call this UI manager. And drop your UI manager script on there, which is fine. So I'm not going to make the UI manager script just yet. I'm going to finish off making the rest of our puzzle script, and then I can refer back to the UI manager later on to sort the rest of the puzzle out. So let's come back into here. Now I can actually make the reference to it, however. So to do that, again, we just say, we make a private object, so private variable, UI manager, because it's finding the game object, or the script, sorry, called UI manager, and we just call it UI manager. So UI manager script. Private boolean, so timer running is false, and it checks if the puzzle timer is running. Private float, running timer value. So running the running timer. Private integer, current step. So what's going to happen here is we need to do this within. I spelled length wrong as well. Have I? No. So we need to do this within 6 steps. So every time we get a correct step, we increment this by 1. And that's what this is basically holding. So then later on we'll do a check, and it will say if current step is more than 6, open the door. We're actually going to make a list now, funny enough. So we've made an array, now we're going to make a list. And what this list is, it's going to hold. So when you make a list, sorry, let's just start this again. When you make a list, you declare its type. And the type of list we're making is going to be an integer. We're going to call it color sequence. It's equal to a new list int. And basically all this is doing is storing the current color sequence in a list. So we're going to get the current color sequence and store that inside of a list. But again, to declare list, you just use you need to declare it as a variable, but then give it a type, and the type is going to be int in this case. So private boolean, puzzle active equals false for now. Check if the puzzle is activated. Then player in trigger. Check if the player is inside of the trigger. And then we also need a reference to our door. So private door script. Okay, and just 2 more variables. Well, sorry, 1 more variable. So an audio source. Audio source. Right, that's the declaring of all the variables. I know it's a bit of a long-winded lesson. Unfortunately, it is what it is. It has to be this particular way for this type of thing we're doing. So let's now move on to the start function. So private void start. And what we're doing is first we're going to get a reference to UI manager. So UI manager equals get game object dot find UI manager dot get component of a type, and our type is UI manager. Yeah. So basically we're getting the UI manager script from the UI manager game object and storing in UI manager. So we're just gonna do a search. Once it's done its search, it's going to find this game object here. It's going to access this script and then store it on our variable so we can access anything that is on this. Running timer value is equal to underscore timer value. So time is set to the timer value. Door script is equal to door.getComponent. Door. Again, so we're just going to get the script from the door and store it. And then audio source is equal to getComponent audio source. So we're just going to get the audio source that's on our cube. Okay, so that's the update function, start function. So void update. So if our player is in the trigger and input log key down, keycode.f, and our puzzle is not activated, then we're going to do something. So what we're doing is we're checking, is the player inside the puzzle? Yes, they are. Okay, have you pressed the F key? Yes, I have. Is the puzzle already activated or not? No, it's not. Okay, now let's do something. So what we're going to do, we're just going to run a debug.log. And our debug.log is entered trigger. So let's see this in action. Start the player off in here just so we don't have to go through the nuances of doing this. Oh, hang on 2 seconds. That is because this is set to player awake. Let's come to prefab and fix that. In fact, we haven't added it on here, so what we need to do is update it for all of them. Yeah, that's fine. So what happened there is that play on awake was on. So when you start the game, it plays it on awake. Obviously, you don't want that. We haven't assigned a door, so let's just go to puzzle activate. Okay, we haven't assigned these. That's not a problem. Let's just grab our door, plonk it on there, and our TV, and plonk it on there, just to stop the errors from coming out. So I should come over to here now and to make sure that this is a trigger. So again, puzzle activated. It is a trigger. How we find it with the player. Of course we are. We can't do it yet. Because, stupid me, I haven't defined whether the player's in the trigger or not yet, have I? So it's not going to work. So I need to do that. So it's just a very simple private void on trigger enter. If ever compare tag player in trigger equals true. Now that should work. So as you see at the bottom, we've got the console warning saying that we're inside trigger. If I hit F again, and let me turn off collapse, you can see every time I hit it, it's saying we're inside the trigger. So that works, which is great. So let's come back up to here and let's define some more actions. So what we're going to do is we're going to call a new method, and I called it start puzzle. So this is inside the update. So once the player's in the trigger and the press the F and the puzzle isn't activated, we're going to start the puzzle. We can get rid of this debug log now because we don't need it. We'll start the puzzle, and yeah, we'll start the puzzle. We will add something with the UI manager later on. So UI manager dot clear. But don't worry about this. I'm just putting it here as a reminder for me later on in a different lesson. But for now, that's fine. Just leave it as it is. So what we want to do is check if the timer is running. So if timer running, so if the timer is running, then ring time value minus equals time dot dot time. So count down in seconds. If the ring timer value is less than 0, so basically when we run out of time, what we want to do is the timer running is equal to false, and then we're going to call a new method and we call it reset puzzle. So basically this resets the puzzle, resets the clock. We also want to trigger exit, so private, void on trigger exit. If ever the player compare tag player and trigger is false, so we just reset that. Okay, let's make the method for the start puzzle. So when you start the puzzle, well, the puzzle now becomes activated. So let's activate it. So activate puzzle. The UI manager doesn't have this yet, but I'm going to put it in a comment just to stop it from making problems for me. But start count down timer. So essentially, we're going to create a countdown. We're going to create a countdown timer in the UI manager, and we're going to pass to it this flow of the timer value. So basically, whatever this value is. But we can't do that just yet because we haven't made the function. So there's no point doing it because we haven't got it. So timer running is true because the timer has started running. I'm going to generate color sequence. So we're going to make a new method, color sequence. And we're going to display next color. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to do a for loop, and we're going to go through each iteration of our color blocks. So to do that, we say for integer I equals 0. So this is what we're doing now. We're going to loop through the index and we're going to grab some information from this index. So if I is less than the number of colored blocks or length, so basically how long our array is, or say 6 in this case, or 5, sorry, or sorry 6 for colored blocks. So how long our array is, then we're gonna run through each one, and as we run through each one, we say animator anim colored blocks I. Let's make sure it's spelled right. dot game object, dot get component. Sorry, of type animator. Oh, that's because we haven't put an equals here. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through every single colored block that is in our array, and then we're going to get the animator from there. And then what we're going to do is anim dot we're going to reset the trigger of deactivated. So basically, if it's already been deactivated, then we kind of want to reset that. If we previously played the puzzle, and then what we do is set the trigger, which is activated. Audio source dot clip equals activate puzzle sound effect and audio source dot play. So previously we dropped the audio. We previously dropped this on the door, for example. We've dropped the audio here. We just defined it. We just said here's what you want to play. In this instance, we're going to have different sound effects that play. So different sound effects that play will be the ones that we are defining here. And then we're just going to say, we'll play this one, or play this one. In this instance, we want to play the activated puzzle because we've activated the puzzle. Let's come back to our script. And let's make a new method that is void. Generate color sequence. And then color sequence dot clear. So basically we clear the list. So we're getting rid of everything in that list. And then we're going to iterate, then we're going to run through the list again. So int I equals 0. I is less than the the sequence length. And then I plus plus. So it's a for loop, and we loop through it, and then we go through each color, and we say integer random color index is equal to random range. Oh. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to randomly select a color from the materials. Now you'll notice for some reason I've started my index at 1. Now I said previously indexes start at 0 because they do. Because we've got a black material on our TV, which is this, we need to make sure that that is index 0 so that when we reset the puzzle, it reverts back to that index 0. Okay, so it reverts back to that black material, which is why all our other materials are going to start from index 1 onwards. So we set that and we say color sequence add. So we're going to add to the list random color index. So we're adding to our color sequence list the random index. And the current step is equal to 0. Then we're going to do a void display next color. So if the current step is less than the color sequence dot count, so how many color sequences are in our list, what we do is we say mesh renderer color TV get component in children mesh renderer. So basically get the material from the TV. But remember, because the TV was because our TV is it was a face of that TV, we need that face to change. Material, and then it's an index. Sorry, an array. Materials, we'll call it, and mesh renderer dot materials. And basically, what we're doing here is we grab the array from the materials. Materials 1, because we're starting at this material 1, is equal to TV mat color sequence current step. So using index 1, change the material to the current materials in the list for the current step. Mesh renderer materials equals materials. Make sure it's not adding anything stupid at the top. No, I haven't. What else we got? Set trigger. So that's our if statement. However, else open door. So we're going to make a public method now. So public void blocks. I'll call it integer block index. So what this is doing, this is going to refer to another script we'll make in a minute. And basically, when the block is hit, you will change the next one to hit. Basically, we're going to increment the current step. So I'll show you how that works out. So So if the puzzle isn't activated, then return. Otherwise, if block index is equal to color sequence current step, what you want to do is increment your steps by 1. So basically increase it by 1. Display the next color, and then audio source dot clip is equal to correct entry audio source dot play. So every time you hit the correct block for that color, it's going to increase our current step. It's going to then display the next color. It's going to assign the audio clip, and it's going to play the audio clip. Else reset puzzle. So basically, if you get it wrong, reset the puzzle. Audio source dot clip is wrong entry, and audio source dot play. So basically, if you hit the wrong puzzle, reset the puzzle, assign a wrong entry sound effect, and play it. And then the next step is to obviously reset the puzzle. So void reset puzzle. So we're going to do debug here, and the debug will be puzzle filled. Timer running is no longer true, so we set that to false. Puzzle active is false because the puzzle is no longer active anymore. UI manager, let's comment this out first. UI manager dot stop countdown timer. And then all we do is we're now going to set the materials back to basically index 0 for the TV. So to do that, we just say mesh renderer mesh renderer. Material. Materials. Material. So basically what we're doing here is we're setting the materials back to our index 0. So basically the TV material can go back to black. Just running a for loop for int equals 0. Alright, less than color blocks. Alright, why is this got a bit funny on me? Color blocks, game object. Why is it not? If I is less than the color blocks, what am I doing? Why am I doing that? There you go. Right, sorry, I've done this wrong. 2 seconds. Let's go back. So for loop, int I is less than 0, I is less than color blocks or length. So I'm just going to basically animate the blocks. So I'm going to get the animator again. Let's make sure that's b anim dot reset trigger. So basically, again, once the puzzle has been reset, we're going to set the TV back to black. Once the TV back to black, we then get the animator from all the blocks and we animate the blocks down, and then we reset their triggers to make sure that it's not looping. Again, I know this is a very long-winded explanation. Hopefully you've been in class, so you don't have to fully go through all this. Again, this kind of is our code breakdown that explains what's happening. Whereas you're not going to get that context in the classroom in terms of we're just going to give you the script, where this is more of the extra lesson for you. And all we want to do next is just open our door. So in order to open a door, or why have we got this here? So void open door. So basically, once the puzzle is solved, so I'm going to do a debug log to tell me the puzzle is solved. So puzzle solved. Door script dot open door. Puzzle active will be false. Timer running is false. UI manager dot stop countdown timer. And again, all we're going to do is stop our who's going to reset our blocks. So to reset our blocks, very simple. We're just going to copy this and paste it here. I just need to do the for loop for it. So for that should copy this over. Blah, blah, blah. We've done it again. So let's reset that. Sorry, the dog barking really put me off. There. So why is the reset puzzle? So that is this first script completed. I know it's a long-winded script, but we're still not finished because now we need to make the script that is going to allow our cubes to move up and down. So to do that, we click on this here, which is our button. Make a new script. Ooh. And this is the coloured block buttons. And we drag this over here. Okay, so we're going to open that script. So the coloured block buttons, delete button here. We make a new serialized field and we'll call it private integer and it's the button color index. So at the minute we won't name this anything, but essentially you're going to have to decide on what order you want your different colors to be. So to do that, what we'll do is we'll do it right now. If we go to our array here on the materials, we've got 6 colors. Obviously the first one is going to be black. Let's just drop our materials on. So black is going to be index 0, and then we've got blue, orange, pink, red, and yellow. So we need to remember yellow. So we need to remember that. So what we're going to do is in our script we will declare that. So 1 is equal to blue, 2 is orange, 3 is pink, 4 is red, 5 is yellow. Now what we'll have to do is once we duplicate our blocks and we change the materials on the blocks, we then will also have to define what number it is, the index, and this is the reference to that. So private colored block button block puzzle. So basically a reference to our puzzle script. I spelled our colored block wrong, so I've actually spelled it as colored block puzzle. You spelled it right. So just call this puzzle controller. And then private boolean, another inside trigger boolean, and just set to false for now. Start function, puzzle controller is equal to find any object by type. Basically, you're going to find any object with that script on it, and it's going to do something. Private void update. And again, if inside trigger and import dot get key down key code dot f. Then what we're going to do is the puzzle controller dot blocks is the button color index. So to quickly explain what that is if we're inside the controller and we press F on it, so basically if we come to our block and we press F, it's going to get the current index number which we defined here, and it's going to call the blocks, which is this. And then obviously if it's correct, so let's say on the screen it's red and we had defined this now as 4, the index is going to send the index over to here. It's going to check, okay, is it the current index? Yes it is. Well done, do this. If it's 5 for yellow, well then it's just going to reset the puzzle. Again, I'm going to pause for 2 seconds. Sorry guys. Okay, so reset puzzle. So, come back onto here. We need to make an on trigger enter and on trigger exit. So, very simple. Void on trigger enter. If compare tag, sorry, other.compare tag. Player. Inside trigger equals true. Otherwise, on trigger exit. If about compare tag player inside trigger equals false. And that's the simple bit of script for the actual button. So basically what's happening is if you click on the button, it sends the integer number over to here, and then if it's correct, increments the steps, displays the next color. If it's incorrect, resets the puzzle and then plays the audio for that, which is fine. Our final step would be to make the let it compile. Oh, yeah. Our final step will be to make the UI manager script, which we've got. So just open it. So firstly, we need to make reference to the slider. So public, sorry, not public, serialized field, private, slider. Obviously, we need to make sure we're using Unity Engine UI. We'll call this timer slider. And then what we need to do is make some floats for our time. So private float timer value, private float initial timer value, private board timer. So what's going to happen is this is our value, timer value, so the current time. This is the initial timer value, so what we're starting with, and it's the timer running. So make it a start function. In fact, let's not make a start function, don't need it. Make an update function. So we're going to check if the timer is running, and if it is running, get the timer value and decrease it by each frame, and then set the timer value to the time value. So timer value is equal to minus equals time dot time. Timer slider dot value is equal to timer value. So we're going to decrease this every frame, and then we're going to take the value of the slider. So this here, and we're going to decrease it frame by frame by frame. Then we do a check if timer value is less than or equal to 0. We're going to stop the timer. So timer running is false. Timer value is equal to 0. Timer slider dot game object dot set active is to false. So basically we're going to hide it. When we want to actually start the countdown timer, so when we call it within our script, we simply say public void start countdown timer, and the value is a float called timer. Time value equals timer value is equal to timer. Initial timer value is equal to timer, and the timer running is true. What we're going to do is set our timer slider dot max value to the initial timer value. And our timer slider so here's what we're doing here. In our script on here, when we start the countdown, which is being called here, we pass to it the time value, which is this. We pass that float number to it and we call it timer. So the timer value, timer. The initial time value is timer, and then you set it to running true. You set the maximum value to the initial timer, so whatever that value is. You get the timer slider value and set that to the initial timer value. And then you enable the game object so it's visible. And then our final piece is to make another void called stop the countdown timer. And the timer running is false. Timer slider dot max value dot game object dot set active is false, and the timer value is reset back to 0. So we can now uncomment this and uncomment this. So our sequence length is 6, our timer value is 60, and our door. What we need to do is give it now our blocks. So all we need to do is come to here and override and apply to all. Now we just need to duplicate these. So we go to the prefabs, just drop them on. Just reset this to 0 position. And just move it somewhere else. So here, for example. And let's just duplicate this way. So just drag another one in. Pop it over here. So we set 5. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5. Make sure they are going to appear properly. Now obviously our colours are still all red or pink. So what we need to do is make sure that we change them. So we go to the materials, and then on each one, so we'll call this the pink. This will be our blue. This is going to be our orange. This will be our yellow. And this will be our red. So pink's fine, go to blue, drop down, click our button. And then where our material is, we're just going to change the material to blue. Just drag it on, like that. And then the same for the orange one. Drag material. Same for the yellow. And same for the red. Okay, so now we need to remember our reference. So just snap this to the side here, and our script. Let's remember the colours. So we said that 1 was blue, 2 was orange, 3 was pink, 4 was red, and 5 was yellow. So let's just do that. So we need to come to each one. So pink on the button, and pink was 3. Blue was 1. Orange was 2. Yellow was 4. And sorry, yellow was 5. And red was 4. Let's check that. Red 4, yellow 5, orange 2, blue 1, pink 3. Good. So if we come to the puzzle activated switch again, which is this, we can just drag these over. So we need to make 5 objects. Again, these need to be in the right order. So pink, blue, orange, yellow, and red. And if we remember on our script again, one more time, I should move this aside. 1 would have been blue. Actually, sorry, it makes no difference for this. For this, it didn't make no difference. It's because we've already got the index. So sorry, ignore me on that. These are the important bits. This is so important. Okay, so let's make sure everything else is assigned, which it is. Obviously, we haven't got the audio assigned. Don't worry too much about that. We can do that in a second. Just want to play the game, make sure it works. So we come in. We haven't actually made reference on our UI manager. Sorry to the slider. Just put that in there. Let's also disable the slider and start. Now I'll do it again. Press F and yellow starts. Let's just pause for a second. There is no animator attached apparently. Two seconds, let me work this out. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Um, I've logged up a component. Could it be? Let's try that. Again, don't worry about this. This will be fixed at a new user level. So it's now accessing that. Why isn't it accessing the others though? And our slider is working. For some reason, though, it's not accessing this. Why? Hmm. So it's just okay. Let's just disable these for a second. Just in case this is causing any problems, it shouldn't be, but also ignore that. Let's try again. Put this side by side so we see what's happening. There you go. So it should all knock that. There you go. So the red, orange, pink, orange. There you go. So it works. And obviously nothing there, so it's not going to work. Well, it's not going to finish, but that one works. So our script works. We just need to add the audio. Let's add that back in with the script. So before I complete that, the reason why this wasn't working is because it was just getting a component. We actually need to get the component from the child because the animator isn't on the button, it's on the column itself, which is why it wasn't working. So we need to get that, and that made it work. What I need to do, go back into here, add our references for the audio back in. You will obviously source your audio yourselves. Oh, we need to make that so. Yeah, so you guys will source the audio yourself. I'm just going to come to here. And deactivate pedal. Sorry, let me go to sound effects. Let me drag these in. Fine, in 2 seconds. So let's compile again. Decide cursor. Obviously, you'll have different ones, but these are mine. Again, make sure that it's not set to autoplay, but it won't be because the audio source has been added. Let's add the audio source then. Audio source. And make sure play no waves off. So let's start again. Let's zoom out to yellow. And completed. And there we go. And that's our level completed. So, to recap what we've done, we've animated some objects. These, we put them into an array which holds materials, and then we make when you click on this button here, our TV changes to the color that we want it to match within our cubes. Our cubes would then send back to the TV whether it's a correct or incorrect answer, and if it's correct, increase, change color until we hit 6 and then open the door. Nice and simple. I know it was a bit long, this video, but it was just quite a lot to it for such a simple script. Thank you guys.